Malerie, and you're watching GCTV. I'm here with Art Ames. Sorry.
Don't be, I'm the only one that needs to remember my name.
Okay. Art Ames, who is a local radio host and a music journalist. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. And hello to everybody out there in GCTV land.
Thank you for coming on here.
My pleasure.
How did you first become interested in music and radio?
Wow. Well, more about music. It started really early. I grew up in the 60s, and my parents loved music, and we had an old record player, and when I was 4 years old, they gave me permission to play the records if I was very, very careful.
Oh.
And I remember listening to Judy Garland and Harry Belafonte and all the showbiz and show tunes and loving it. And I was also a little kid, so I liked cowboy music too.
Oh.
And when I was about 4 or 5, an album called Time Out by the Dave Brubeck Quartet came out. My brother had that album. He was older than me. And I loved it. And I learned how to read by looking at the back of the album cover and figuring out the words while I was listening to the music. So, and ever since then, music has been my balance in a crazy world. The world gets crazier all the time,
Yeah.
but I can escape in the music. So I think it's just a natural love of it. And then as far as how I got started in radio, maybe about 15 years ago, I took a leave of absence from my work. I ran a co-op similar to the co-op that we have here in Greenfield. And I got in my old hippie VW van, and I decided to travel around the country without any plans of where I was going. And I traveled across the bayous of North Carolina, Louisiana. I ended up in Texas on the Rio Grande in Terlingua, a ghost town, listening to great music. And when I came home, a local radio DJ in Great Barrington was talking to me about the music I had discovered. She asked me to come on her show and play a couple of songs. So we sat down, I played a few songs, and she just turned to me, she said, "You want to take over the show?" And I did the rest of the show, and I loved it, and I've been on the radio ever since.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. It was unexpected.
What is your favorite part about being a music journalist?
I think the first thing that I have to accept is I never claim to be an expert. So I always tell people, even on my show, listen to the music, don't listen to me. It's just my opinion, and I don't know anything more about music than you do, for example. But it was really fascinating to me to speak with some of the people who I admire as they're making music and get their ideas of what goes into writing a song. And I learned a lot about music and was able to appreciate where they were coming from. So it puts a personal spin on the music I would listen to anyway, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your most memorable interview with a musician?
Sure. I had never written for a magazine before, and I was at a concert in New York City and bumped into somebody. We were there to see a band called Trampled by Turtles, and I can't remember, I don't remember where we were at, maybe the Bowery, and we just got to talking, and I mentioned some things about Americana music, and she said she wrote for a magazine. It was called Elmore. And I sat down and talked with them about this crazy idea I had to write a piece about Americana music and concerts. Never written before, and unbeknownst to me, they liked the idea. And I ended up writing what was going to be the cover piece for that. My first writing job was the cover piece. And the first person I had to interview was Rodney Crowell. And it was a phone interview. And I didn't even know how to use the silly recorder that you have to use, and I had never interviewed anybody in my life. And he scheduled us for 10 minutes. We interviewed for an hour and a half. He was fascinating. I told him right off the bat that I was the first interview. He was my first. He was so kind and so open and so forthcoming that he put me at ease. And an hour and a half later, when we got done, and I thanked him and said goodbye, I realized that that was a moment in time that I will never forget. So that was my first interview, and still today the most memorable one.
How do you decide which songs or artists to talk about on your radio shows?
Oh, gosh. So one of the reasons I'm here at WMCBLP is that I'm given the freedom to program my own shows and play my own music. So there are some days that I sort of have a list, like today was in honor of New Year's, so I sort of knew what I was going to play. And other days, I just get in. I may only know the first song I'm going to play, and then I kind of wing it. So how do I choose? It's a gut feeling. You know, music tells a story to me, and it's not only the words in the music, it's the way it's written, or whether it's loud or soft or fast or slow. Music creates a mood. And so I'm a human being. I know what my moods are like, and I just automatically put a show together that reflects that mood. So there'll be peaks and valleys. You can't have nothing but fast, loud music because people will tune you out. You can't have quiet, retrospective music for 3 hours because people will tune you out. So I think of what I want to hear, and that's what I choose. I mean, I wish I could be more specific because I'm asked that question all the time, but it really is sort of an internal process that comes naturally to me.
What's the most fun thing about hosting your own radio show?
There are two. It's a tie. The first one is that we're very busy in our day-to-day lives. Like, we usually don't have the time to do things that we want to do, especially if it means quieting down for a little while and taking it easy. It's like we have to get to the store, or we have a doctor's appointment, or the kid has to be picked up, or the pet has to be fed. So doing the show does two things for me. It forces me to stay up with new music so I can be educated with what I play. And more importantly, it gives me 3 hours of quiet, my moment of zen for the whole week, where I can sit down, sometimes literally put my feet up in the desk. Don't tell them I put my feet on the desk, you know, and just relax and listen to the music that I like, that I don't always have time for. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then the other thing I love is I'm not stuck in the past. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, but I don't need to, nor do I want to listen to oldies all the time. I'm fascinated by new music and current music and what people have to say about what's going on in the world now. So when I hear a song that excites me, or I discover a new band, it's really a lot of fun. And because I get excited and I like people and I like music, I love to share. So nothing pleases me more than when somebody listens to the show and then they tell me, I never heard of that person, never heard that song. Oh my goodness, it was great. I'm going to look into it. So I even like it when somebody says, I heard that song you played. Yuck, I hate it. Because I think that's okay too. I think having a reaction and hearing something new is exciting, and I want to share that.
That's cool.
I think so.
How do you stay updated on all the latest music trends and news?
I don't, and I can't. So my friends will listen to a show and say things like, wow, you know a lot about music. And I let them know that for every band or song that I know, there's probably 1,000 that I don't know and never heard of, but I do my best. So one of the things that I do, I don't listen to Spotify, I don't listen to any of those streaming services. I'm opposed to them for a lot of reasons, including the fact that artists don't get paid what they deserve. So it means that I have to do my own work, and I'm lucky to be semi-retired, so I have the time. So Fridays, I sit at my computer. The cat gets comfortable in the chair next to me. I get a big cup of coffee, and I start going through all the new music that has been released. And because I've been doing this long enough, a lot of the record companies and musicians will send me their music so I can download it and listen to it. And it doesn't mean I listen to every song, but I might go through an album and listen to pieces of the song. And if it's something I like, I put it into a playlist to play later. And then I'll make a note of it. I do the same thing on Tuesdays because what's weird is that American new music gets released on Fridays, and music from overseas and from down under, so Europe, Canada, not that they're down under, but they're another country, Australia, their music gets released on Tuesdays. So I sit down on Tuesdays and go through that too.
That's cool.
Well, it takes a lot of time, but if it's something that you like to do, and again, I'm so lucky to have the time to do it, not everybody has 20 hours a week to investigate new music like I do. So, and I go out and see a lot of music. So if I go to Hawk and Reed right here in downtown Greenfield and see a band I never heard before and like them, the first thing I do the next day is look them up, listen to more of their music, put some of their music into my show, and take it from there.
Oh, have you ever had an interview that didn't go as planned?
Yeah, but only in a good way. So I mentioned Rodney Crowell.
Yeah.
The other one I got to interview, and again, I didn't know these people, and I was new, and I was a little bit starstruck. I had to interview Rhiannon Giddens, who now is a bigger name than she was then. Back then, she was with Carolina Chocolate Drops, and a lot of people didn't know her yet, but I was a big admirer of her and her newer work, especially her challenge, which was to bring black music and historical United States black music and the history behind it to an audience, and nobody was doing that. So when I had to interview her, the first thing she said was, I only have 5 minutes, I'm holding one of my kids, I just got done with breakfast, and I'm washing dishes as we speak. That was another interview that I said, oh, absolutely. We talked for an hour and a half on that one too. And meanwhile, she was juggling the baby, washing the dishes, doing what moms do and never get appreciated for, which is, doing 32 tasks all with one hand while talking on the phone with me.
Oh, wow.
And her insights and what she's trying to do and bring this music to families and children and really impressed me. And it was a very emotional interview for me because I have kids too, and I'm thinking, like, she's the perfect parent, that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's another interview that I'll always remember from that particular article.
Oh, okay. What advice would you give to someone who wants to become a music journalist or a radio host?
If you don't love music and you're just looking at a career, don't do it. That's my first piece of advice. You really got to love music. You also have to have a thick skin. So if there's something that you like and your friends are making fun of you for it and that bothers you, don't do it. It's your own opinion, it's your own taste that will make you a success. Anybody can learn how to handle a control board. When we submit articles, we have editors who will help us rewrite articles. We don't have to be great writers, but we have to have a perspective, and we have to be not afraid to give that perspective and not be afraid of feedback. The other advice is that if you're the kind of person that gets starstruck, don't do it. I remember watching, do you ever see the movie Almost Famous?
No.
All right, well, they made the point that if a journalist becomes friends with the band, they can't be a journalist. So the love is for the music, the love is for the creativity, but if you're starstruck and looking for idols, don't do it, you'll fail miserably. So you have to have an open mind, you have to be willing to put yourself out there, but the number one thing is love music, and then try to do something you love.
That's good.
Thank you.
How do you make sure your radio show is fun and interesting for listeners?
I don't have a clue. The only thing I can say about that is that I talked about it earlier. Doing a radio show, and I do it for 3 hours, is more than just the song that you're playing. It's sort of telling a story, and it's playing with emotions. So like I said, if you play 3 hours of loud head-banging music, people stop listening. If you play 3 hours of quiet Judy Collins music, people will stop listening. It's to do sort of an ebb and flow, bring things up, bring them, let people relax, recognize that people, when they listen on the radio, don't always listen. So every once in a while you cut in with a song that's so different or so weird or so peculiar that people sit up and go, what the heck was that? And hopefully they do that in a good way. And that keeps them coming back. So I couldn't tell you if I'm successful at it. I don't think ahead doing something like that. Again, it's sort of part of how I put together a show. And because it's pretty organic and it sometimes depends on my mood, if I'm in a bad mood, the music might be a little different than if I just celebrated somebody's birthday, for example.
Oh, okay. What do you think is the most important thing for someone who loves music to know?
Trust what you hear and how you react to it. Like I said earlier, you know, I play everybody. In today's show, I played everybody from Nancy Wilson to Alicia Keys. Did I play Kendrick Lamar today? It really doesn't matter. So if you like something, don't worry about the genre. Don't worry if people think you're weird. As I told you earlier, when I was a little kid, I listened to Dave Brubeck. At the time, I didn't tell my other 5-year-old friends because I thought they would think I was weird. You know, I don't worry about that anymore. If you like it, play it. If you like it, feel it. I go to see a lot of music. Usually, if it's, I would prefer go seeing somebody that's standing room rather than sitting. And I like to be up front, and I like to move to the beat. Some call it dancing, I just call it moving. And it's been pointed out to me by others that half the time I'm up there, my eyes are closed. So I'm not even looking at the band, I'm feeling it. I like to be near the front because to me, music isn't just in your ears. I can feel the bass right through my body. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can feel the emotion. You can almost smell the crowd. So music, for some of us, affects almost all the senses. So don't be afraid of that. It's your moment in a crazy world, in a crazy life, to let things go. Be yourself, be in the moment, have your moment of zen, and find the balance it's a challenging world out there. So we need an escape. This is my escape.
Well, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for listening or watching or whatever all these folks out there are doing.
No problem. And thanks for watching GCTV. See you next time.